Alright guys, 6.7 Cummins, the Serpentine belt. Kind of had a little bit of aggravation getting this one off and on, but I think we figured it out. One thing I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of videos that show exactly how the belt goes on, so I'm going to try to get as much detail on how the belt is on the truck. So if you've gotten yours off and you're trying to figure out how to put it back on, how does it go back on, this maybe will give you a good point of reference. We did just put it back on. We did start it up. Everything did do fine. But it was a little aggravating. So around the alternator, from the alternator, it goes down to the AC compressor down at the very bottom. Okay. It goes around the AC compressor and comes right back up over the tensioner. From the tensioner, it turns and goes, makes a U-turn and goes straight back around the bottom of the crank. Here's where it comes around the air conditioning compressor from the bottom. This bracket makes it where it can only go straight back up and over that tensioner. Now you have to turn the belt sideways to get it past that tensioner. Then it makes a U-turn, comes right back down the other side of the tensioner, around the crankshaft, and makes a complete circle around the crankshaft and goes up on to where the back of the belt is riding the water pump, or not the water pump, but the fan hub. Okay, it goes around it. Now you can see right here, if I can get my light on it, it goes up and around the fan hub and then makes another U-turn and comes directly straight back down to the power steering right here, and goes around the power steering and goes back to that top pulley on the end. So from the power steering pump right here, it runs right back up to this top pulley right here, and that, I'm pretty sure that's just an idler pulley. I don't think there's an attachment on the back of that. And now we'll go back to the other side. And there it is coming off. The idler pulley right here that we were just looking at the opposite side of. Let me get my light on it. There we go. It goes right back down behind that bracket, right around this idler pulley down here. I'm thinking that's an idler pulley. I'm pretty sure it is. And then back up and around the alternator, and we're back where we started. So I hope that helps somebody out. But I'm also going to go ahead and pull this belt off and put it back on. And that way, maybe that will help you out a little bit too. Now to do that, you have to have you don't have to have it, but I would highly recommend the tensioner tool. And I'm going to leave a link to the belt and that we put on, and the tensioner tool in the description. First thing I want to do is the plug right there that goes to the fan. I'm going to unplug it and put it back out of the way. Alright, and then I'm going to try to wiggle this plug out. I think I can do it because I think we did it earlier. But I may need one of the little tools, the pry tools, to pry this out. All it is, a trim removal tool is all you need. But I got that without it. Once you unplug it, roll it to the top. It'll spin on that fan hub. If you see what I did there. So you take this. And you see how it just rolls. Roll it to the top and get it out of the way. Alright, once you got your tool in place, it's kind of hard to do this right here, but once you got your tool in place, it should look like this. Okay, so it's up toward the fan, and you got the short bar and the tensioner, and it'll be facing pretty much straight up to the driver's side, and then when it goes together, the bar doesn't go in a line, you know, straight in line. It's just barely offset, and then you gotta watch that. So you can push this up and get it around that clamp. So now I'm gonna compress that tensioner and take the belt off. Actually, I got my buddy over here that's got it held down. We're gonna pull it. This is a brand new belt. We just finished putting it on, so it could be a booger to get off. I'm gonna pull it off right down here because it's so flat. It doesn't have the ribs. All right, now we can let off the tensioner. Like I say, you have to move it over and come back up past that stuff, and there you go. That's got your tension on. Now you start kind of working the belt out to this side. I'm gonna come around here and take it off these pulleys and get it where I can pull some more tension out, and just keep working it toward the driver's side. This can be done with one hand, but seeing as how I'm having to hold the camera too, I'm gonna get my buddy to hold tension right there, because this keeps going back on to that pulley. Alright, pull a little tension. Like I said, if I wasn't holding the camera, it wouldn't be that big a deal. So just make sure that you're clear on everything. There's that plug that we took off earlier, and it has spun plumb around to the other side. Just make sure, you know, make sure and be gentle with your wires and plugs and connectors. And I'm just going to hook it on every pulley that I can see on this side. Alright, so now I can get both pieces of my tool out. I'll lay them right here. And that's got it where we got it. The belt pulled all the way out and off most of the pulleys. Okay, you can see what I did there. Wow. The pulley, the belt is behind that pulley. I'm trying to get my light and my camera where everything can line up, but it's hard. And then you just wiggle and work it, and it will come right out. Alright, so now you just start pulling it back out from the top. I'm hanging it on every pulley. So my buddy's up top, he's going to start easing it towards him, and we're going to make sure that it comes around. That's another tight spot, is between the crank and the water pump. It's really tight. So, but yeah, you can go back up top now. Like I said, it's not just horrible, but it is, and this is a brand new belt. We just bought it, just put it on. But it was a pain in the butt, and it was our first time, so we wanted to make a video. So now we're gonna put it directly back on. We got a little sidetracked and did some different things, but one thing I did want to note is earlier I said to work the belt to the driver's side. I was wrong. I was up underneath the truck and everything was backwards. So I mean, you work everything out on the passenger side, the side the tensioner's on. And then when you start putting it back together, you start in from the passenger side too. I'll show you that here in just a second. But right now, I want to make sure you can give you a good shot of the part number. And this is a MOPAR belt. Yeah, so that's a part number, and it will be in the link below. And this is for a 2018 Tradesman with a 6.7 Cummins in it. Alright, so now I'm going to try to get this thing wadded up and start feeding it back through. Alright, so I'm going to start here at the passenger side, and I'm just going to feed the belt down, try to get as far in as I can, and Once again, I'm sorry about the light. We had some other stuff come up that held us from getting right back to it. But the idler pulley right there, I think it's idler pulley. I may be dead wrong, but like I say, I'm just going to try to put just a little bit of it up in there. You don't have to force the whole thing up in there at one time, but yeah. And then alright, so I went around the air conditioning compressor. I tried to get on that. And then I tried to get it fed over far enough that I could get on top of the idler pulley on top of the engine. The pulley on top of the engine. And now I'll have to go underneath and try to turn that belt sideways and get it back up in between the idler. That's the next step. Okay, so I realized if you pull it off of this pulley, because I had put it on that pulley, and then take and twist the belt that way, just like the way you see it right there, you can literally just push it right up on that pulley and it falls just right where it needs to be. So that's pretty awesome. And then you can pull it right back around here on that, and then feed the rest of this belt back up through there, because you won't need it down here. Now that I have the slide pulled back down on the other side of the, you see it's coming off of this pulley, up and around the tensioner pulley, down, and I'm putting it on the crank pulley. And all this is underneath the fan. But you do have to turn that belt. That belt has to go sideways a lot in this process, because there's not really enough room. So okay, now I'm going to go back to the top. Alright, now that I'm back up on top, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this straight up, lay it on the alternator. This plug that we unplugged earlier is all in the way, so I'm going to slip the belt around over top of the plug, and now I'm going to try to push the plug back up out of the way. It's one of the places you really need both hands on it, but it's really almost impossible to get both hands on it. And then whenever I lay the belt across, I got all that kind of in the way too, so I'm going to move to the other side of the engine and try to work with it from that side. So the top needs to go back across that top pulley, and this needs to be on the water pump, and everything looks good. Except for the crank pulley. The belt is kind of hung down in there on the crank pulley, but there it is. So now I've got it back on the crank and up on the water pump. And that is just about it. So let's see. Now we're gonna go over what we looked at earlier. Okay. 2 flashlights. Alright, the belt is still loose, but it's routed around the air conditioning compressor at the bottom. The tensioner, you can see right here. Well, you can't, but it's on the tensioner. It goes back down and around the crankshaft. And the only pulley that we're not on is that big metal one looking one right there. I don't know if that's a water pump. I'm not a Cummins man. I just trying to learn how to get the belt off and on. But when we put the tensioner tool on to pull it down tight, that's the pulley that I'm gonna try to put it on, because it's really tight going around the alternator. That's why I'm not focusing on getting that on that one. So like I say, recap, it's at the right place on the air conditioning compressor, right place on the alternator, it's on the tensioner in the right place, it's wrapped completely around the crank and coming back up around the fan hub that I keep calling a water pump because I'm an old school Chevy guy. So yeah, young, that is what it is. But it is the fan hub, not the water pump. And then come around to this side. You can see it's on the top of the fan hub. It's on the big pulley on top. Comes down around the power steering. And that's it. Put the tool back on and pull the tension and slip it on. One thing I want to draw attention to. Alright, there's bolts right here. Right here. That tensioner tool will hit that bolt and you'll never know it. You'll think it bottomed out. It's actually hitting that bolt, and you've got to press the tensioner tool forward in order to get it to go on right, to go on past that. Because you won't get that belt on, a new belt, without getting past that bolt. And there's plenty of things for it to hang up on, but that's the best way that I've found to do it. So you want to go ahead and let the tension off. And you see the clamps and all this. Just kind of finesse it. And on that little short bar, 2 times today trying to figure this out, we dropped that short bar down in the radiator. You got to have a really good magnet to get that joker out. So that's something to think about. But I'm gonna go ahead and take the tensioner tool, grab it down there and pull it up. That way I can take it apart in pieces so I don't drop this back down in there. And that's got it. Now once you're done, I don't care if it's a 6.7 Cummins, I don't care what you're working on. Always go through and check your pulleys again. Let's see that flashlight there, bud. Always go through and check your pulleys again for proper belt alignment. Making sure that all the ribs are on and in the right places where they need to be. Make sure that belt's centered up on those pulleys really good. Because if not, you'll trash trash a brand new belt. If it's off one little rib, and that's the magnet you need to get the daggum tensioner pulley part back out if you drop it. And then I come around and check, make sure the belt's on the pulleys square all the way around. I check and double check regardless of what vehicle I'm working on. I want to know that belt, when I start it up, it's not going to shred that belt. Alright, one more thing I want to draw attention to, and then this will be a done project. So that sensor right there, that's your crank position sensor. And I had a friend that actually broke his belt and it come around and cracked that sensor. That's why we went ahead and put this belt on today at How many miles on this truck?
About 190.
190,000. To make sure, we would rather fix it here than fix it on the side of the road and replace the belt versus the belt and the crank position sensor. Because, and that was holding me off the first time. You've got to slide that belt up under the lip, the edge of that sensor. Because if you don't, it will throw you off just enough you can't pull the belt over the pulleys on top. So if you're hung up and you can't figure out why, that is a good place to start. To look and see if it's not riding up the edge of that plastic sensor holding you off on top. Okay, we got one thing left to do and this will be done. Alright, so the next thing is take your little plug. We spun it around all over the place. Now we're ready to put it back on. This is kind of a pain to get lined back up, but that's got that. And then it just pushes and clicks back in. Well, heard it click. There's that. And we're done with that part. As far as changing the serpentine belt, we're done. And we looked for a couple of videos on this trying to help us out, and we found some of them were pretty good, some of them were some of them didn't even seem like they were to the 6.7. I don't know, but when we figured out that way, I mean, we could change, me or him, either one could change this belt now and probably by ourselves in maybe 20 minutes, but with someone helping, 10. You know, it's, make sure you take your air box out, because there was another guy that I was helping out and he didn't want to take the air box out. He was worried that would take too much time. Well, it makes all the difference in the world to have that air box out. You can just see everything so much better and get to everything so much better. But yeah, so like I said, that about wraps it up. Anything I think that you guys might could use that we used during this video, I'll leave in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.